Ishwaram, as resplendent sun. It's the start of a bright new day. Time to rise, time to shine, Lord divine. Time to lead us along life's way. Awake, Lord of Buddha party. Awake, O Lord, over all mankind. Awake, O Lord of compassion, that the world good fortune may find.
I suppose I could tell a few stories about Swami. There's sort of a progression from when I first visited Swami in 1979. And we'll see what happens as we go along. I first came to Swami in the end of October 1979, and it was a very difficult journey. But prior to coming, I had uncertainties about whether I should be coming at all, because one starts to be concerned about whether Swami is really calling or whether it's one's monkey mind. And so I just said, Swami, I'm confused. Please tell me if you really want me to come. And 2 days later, I was in another city running a training program, and I went out to buy some lunch. I took my wallet out, and I had a picture of Swami under the plastic in the front, and I opened that up, and it was covered in vibhuti. It's one of those things, you know, you can read about it in books happening to other people, but when it happens to you, it really blows your mind. How can this happen? How can it finish up in my wallet, in my pocket, under the plastic on the photograph? Of course, that was enough evidence for me to go anyway. And it was a hard journey. I called it 5 weeks of mental, emotional and physical agony. But Swami put me through a lot, and when I left the ashram, and the agent said to me, we'll see you again, I said, no, I'll never be back. As much as I love Baba, I'll never be back to India. And of course Swami must have been sitting back laughing about it. And but a few days after I arrived there, Swami took me in and gave me a Rudraksha, materialized a Rudraksha, the tear of Shiva. And I think it's hidden away here somewhere. And that was, he told me to place that in water and drink the water every day, which I did. Other things happened. There was really a beautiful introduction to Swami, because after that, when I came back naturally, and after that I had many experiences with Swami, and it was going, he seemed to be giving me everything until 1983. And then I found out that there was such a thing as a repair shop. I like to tell this story because it makes us think about what we're doing. I was always telling the groups that I'd brought over here, don't worry, yearn for an interview with Swami. But if you don't get one, just accept that. Don't spoil your trip by getting all agitated and worried about it. So on this occasion, I had a group of about 32, and Swami called us for an interview. Up we went onto the veranda and sat there. Swami came back from giving darshan, and as he come past me, he looked at me and he said, not your group. I'll see your group later. And that's where the confusion came in, because we were the only group there. And What made it more confusing, that Swami then turned to the men in the group and said, "Go in." So then he walked towards the ladies of the group. So the men got up, I got up too. Immediately turned round, he said, "Not you." I didn't know what was happening, but fortunately the ladies got onto him and told him that I belonged, you see. And he looked at them, looked at me, and looked back at them again and said, "Is he with you?" Yeah. I'd taken the group there. Yeah. So then he said, "Go in." So I went in, sat down, and no sooner sat down in the interview room than Swami looked in the door. "Not you, come out." Well, you can imagine how I was feeling by then. It was a state of stress. So I got up and I was coming out, and I was just to the door, and then he said, no, sit down, sit down. So I can't remember much of that interview at all, because I was buzzing all over. For 24 hours I was in the repair shop. I could think of nothing, I could talk to nobody, except why? Why is it so? It's for my benefit, but why is it so? At the end of 24 hours it came, and everything was lifted, and the workshop was finished. You see, what had happened, at the moment Swami said interview, I thought of my previous interview, where I'd sat beside Swami, and he would be talking and he'd keep rubbing me down the back of the head. And occasionally he'd turn to me and say, "Isn't it, sir?" And I'd say, "Yes, Swami," and put the head a little closer, you know. And so it was magnificent. Now there's nothing wrong with yearning to sit near Swami. There's nothing wrong with yearning to have him stroke you down the head. But if you're a group leader, what is wrong is that you place yourself ahead of others in the group. Because I wanted to get right beside the chair again, so as I could be right next to Swami. So even when I did get there, he looked in and said, "Not you, come out," and brought me to the very back of the room and sat me down there. That's a very good lesson to remember, particularly if you're playing a leading role, that you must never place yourself first, you must think of others. So that was that experience. I learned a lot from that. I have to cut through these, because if I start talking about all the different things, we'll be here for too long. But in 1986, one morning, and I tell you some of these all with reason to get the deeper meaning from it. But in 1986, at 4 o'clock in the morning, I woke up with terrible pains across the chest, down both arms, with a feeling that I was going to burst. And eventually I rang a doctor because it became so serious. While I was waiting for the doctor to come, it got even worse again, and I really expected that I was going to burst wide open. And so I got some vibhuti quickly and put it in my mouth. And the moment it hit my mouth, all pain was gone. It was as if someone had just cut it off with a knife. The doctor came. "Who's the patient?" "I am." "What's wrong?" I said, "I'm okay now." What could you tell him? But you see, he said to me, "Tell me exactly how you felt, what was happening." So I told him. And he said, "Oh no, you've got to go to hospital." But I said, "I'm all right now." He said, "I won't leave until you agree to go to hospital." And I said, "Oh, all right, well, I'll get my daughter to take me." He said, "No, it must be in an ambulance." Well, I said, why have I got to go?" Well, he said, "It's been a very bad heart attack." He said, "You'll have to have tests and what have you." So I waited for the ambulance to come. The doctor left. I was walking around the house, and 2 ambulance men rushed in with oxygen, among other things. "Who's the patient?" "I am." So they bodily grabbed me and sat me in a chair and lectured me on the fact that I could not do the things anymore that I'd done previously. But eventually they put me in the ambulance, took me to hospital, and they never ever did find anything wrong. Never had the problem since. So that's Swami. Now, a couple of others like that. In 1987, I developed a strangulated hernia the day I arrived in the ashram. To cut a long story short, I put up with it for 10 days, but the doctor then told me that I'd have gangrene, and so I asked Howard Murfitt and Terry Gallagher to ask Swami if I should go to Bangalore for an operation. And Swami said, "Oh, pus, pus." In other words, it was already bad. But he said, "You must not worry about him. I'm taking care of him." He said, "Bring him up this afternoon in a wheelchair at Darshan." So they took me up, and the interesting thing was, of course, the wheelchair they brought had no footrest, which is a bit difficult with that sort of a complaint. And but Swami gave darshan and then took a number of Chinese people in for an interview. And then he called to wheel me forward. And then he hit me on the leg, like that. And then took me by the hand, said, "Stand up and go inside." As soon as he came in, "You've got pain." "Yes, Swami." I went his hand, and he materialized 3 tablets, 3 oblong ones, with brand names on them. Now, even the Indian doctors didn't know what brand they were. They must have come from Swami's pharmacy. So he said, "Take one now." And I swallowed one immediately, and then it was the mother. He got a piece of tissue paper and wrapped the other ones up like I was a little boy, put it in my pocket in case I lost them, and said, "Take one tonight and one tomorrow morning." "Yes, Swami." So then he spoke to the Chinese people, and after a while then he beckoned to me and he said, "Come." So I got up to go into the other room with him, and I went to move quickly, and he said, "No, no, 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 just slowly." So I went in the other room and I saw 2 chairs, and I thought we were going to sit down and he was going to explain to me what was the problem. However, he wheeled me round and stood me against the wall where the others couldn't see me. And he looked at me and he said, "Very bad hernia." And I said, "Yes, Swami." So away went his hand again, and then when he flipped it over, it was covered in a yellow fluid like oil. And so, you know, I quietly undid the pajama top and opened it up. He said, "Write down." And then he massaged that in. I really can't tell you what that's like. However, he then went and got a cloth to wipe his hand, and he came back. But as he was wiping his hand, I immediately pulled up, tied the cord on my pajamas, and put the shirt down. And then he came back and just kept looking in my eyes. And while he was looking in my eyes, he lifted my shirt up, and straightened the trousers, and tucked the cords in, again like as if I was a little boy. And then put the shirt down, made sure it was neat. And then he said, "Now you can go to Bangalore and just have a small operation." And so immediately in my mind, I thought, I'm not going to be here for Christmas, because this was on the 18th of December. And as quick as I thought that, he said, "Don't worry, you'll be back for Christmas." He said, "I will make all the arrangements, I will take care of everything." And with that, then they took me back to my room. Within an hour or so, they were there to tell me that the car would come for me early in the morning, take me to Bangalore, and I'd be examined that day and operated on the next, which was a Sunday, the 20th. And so off I went, and he said to a friend of ours who was staying with us, "You'll go with him." So he was my servant, my nurse, my everything, and he was delightful. And so we went, and we were taken to a private hospital where the surgeon examined me, and we discussed the operation. It was different from anything else I've ever experienced, because it was as if it was happening to someone else and not to me. There was no concern about it, no anxiety, but talking about it as if I was talking for someone else. We discussed the anaesthetic, discussed what he would do in the operation, and whatever. So about noon on the 20th, had the operation. He said it'd be about 45 minutes. It actually went an hour and a half. I think it's been there for a long time. And so that was all right. I had the best bed in the hospital. The only thing was it had a steel top and very little between it and me. I had more pain from that than I had from the operation. But my friend took care of me. 3 days, if we look at, say, noon on the Sunday to noon Monday 1 day, Tuesday 2 days, Wednesday 3 days, immediately after lunch on the Wednesday I was heading back for the ashram, sitting up in the back of one of those little cars. I said to the doctor on that third morning, "Doctor, the car's coming for me today." "Oh no," he said, "it's far too soon. You can't go yet." And I said, "Well, the arrangements were made before I came in. That's when I'd be going back." "Oh no, it's far too soon." But I'll take the dressing off and have a look. So he took the dressing off and he stood there looking at it and he said, "Oh yes, 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 you're going." And then I had a look. It was as if someone had had a welder and went zzz. It was totally healed. And so I went back that afternoon, and the beautiful part was that a devotee doctor travelled back with us. He insisted on the car coming in on the men's side, coming through the Ganesh gate, down on the men's side. And Swami came out just before bhajans. And Swami came out and he gradually walked across, and the doctor met him at the gate and gave him a report on what had happened. And then he came out the gate and up and leaned into the back of the car to ask after my health. And it was so beautiful. And he said, "You realize that in your own country, with that operation, you'd have been in hospital 10 to 15 days. The surgeon had given me a certificate to say that I had to have complete rest for 6 weeks. 2 weeks after the date of the operation, Poppy and I were walking the fields of Kathmandu. Now, I wasn't running, but we were there walking and doing what we wanted to do. So you see, with Swami, anything can happen. But if I revert back to talking about the heart attack in Australia, a couple of other things that happened. One was at the 60th birthday and the 60th? 65th birthday in the Hillview Stadium. And one particular night there was a children's play, and then it was announced there was going to be a dance, a special dance of Shiva. And this lovely lady came out and dressed immaculately, and the dance started. And the Swami was sitting down in what looked like the orchestra pit, you know, in the front of the Hillview Stadium stage. And I was sitting about in there too, about 10 feet away from him. And I was worried. Somebody had made a mistake. You know, you're not supposed to have a young lady dancing in front of Swami. That's the way it is. And so I thought to myself, somebody's made a mistake. And I'd look at Swami to see if he was all right. You see, you forget for a moment sometimes who he is. But his face was poker face, not a sign of anything. So I'd watch the dance, it was beautiful. But again, I'd look at his face, and nothing showed. This went on all through. Eventually it was over and Swami was leaving. So Swami was walking out and he stopped as he came to me and said, "Have you ever seen that dance before?" And I said, "Oh no, Swami, I haven't, but it was very, very beautiful." "Oh yes," he said. And then he leaned forward and said, "But that wasn't a girl, that was a boy." So I'm never sure anymore, I never say anything. So these are the things that happen, you see. Now, whether you're there amongst a million people or whether you're over in Australia, he knows every moment what's happening with you. If you see him, if you limit him by seeing him in India and seeing him only in that form, then we limit our access to Swami. If we know that that which he is, that which is expressing itself through that form, is in reality what we are, our own true nature. Therefore he's there every moment and will respond every moment. Also see him in all ways, when he jokes with you, when he teases you. Or as one day on the veranda he called me forward. He usually calls out lion, but on this occasion he didn't, he just beckoned. So I went up and he'd been inside talking to the students. I said, I just went on my knees before and said, yes, Swami. Oh, he said, and so innocently and sweetly, oh, they just wanted to see you. Oh, I said, yes, Swami. So I looked in through the door, and there were great peals of laughter. You know, and he smiled too, you know. I didn't mind, I got pada while I was there. But one of the students told me later, it said to them, do you want to see a lion? So it doesn't matter what he's saying, what he's doing is absolutely beautiful and it's perfect. That's 1988. Swami again said to me, how is your health? I said, it's good, Swami. Ah, said, I went to hand, it materialized as Shiva Lingam. And again he said, place it in water and drink the water. I've jumped some of the other things and just come to last year. Over the years I've had a problem of acute pancreatitis, and it's a really bad trip when it comes on. But this last one was the worst that I'd had, and I was actually landing in Fiji when it came on. And the pain management over there wasn't too good, so therefore it got away from us a bit. I eventually got back to Australia and went into hospital there. It was very bad, and I lost about 11 kilo during the process. But what I was getting round to, you know, it didn't really look good for a while. I'd even said to Puppy, I said, look, I don't know what the Lord has in mind for us, but if time is up, let us both just accept that. Let's not get upset about it or anything. And Puppy said, after Hillcoat, Swami said, I was your permanent wife, and if you leave me now, I'll jump on your ashes. So went through that. However, a friend was here at the ashram, and she went into an interview, and Swami said to her, how's the beard? And she said, you mean the lion, Swami? And Swami said, yes. She said, he's very, very ill, Swami. Oh, he eats too much. See, and laughed. And then she said, oh no, Swami, he was very, very ill. And he said, no, 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 he gorges wherever he goes. Again he laughed, you see. And I wasn't a big eater. But anyway, she said again, no, Swami, he's very, very ill. Yes, I know. But he will be all right. And she said, well, Swami, as if to say, you sure? Because I'm going to ring them at home and tell them. And he said, yes, yes, you ring them at home. It'll be all right. And that's where it stayed at that time. But at the end of the interview, and Swami gave out the vibhuti, he turned his back on everybody. But this lady could just see past him, you know, and he reached in and got some vibhuti, and he just held it. Then he turned round and said, give to the lion. Well, that was lovely, but Valmai said, my goodness, she said, you know, I ran and got an envelope quick and put it in and marked it for you. I didn't know he might have been preparing you to die. However, the recovery was fine. So you see, he's thinking of you, He knows about you. He knows what's happening every moment. And his love just finds you wherever you are and takes care of you. So we talk about all these little stories now, but the stories are fine and they're helpful, but we need to go beyond the stories. We need to say, well, what does all this do for us? Why are we here with Swami? Are we really living as he would want us to? Are we being the sort of devotee that Swami wants us to be? Asks us to be, sometimes begs us to be. We need to see what sort of things are happening in our lives, and then we will have a rough idea of whether we're being just the devotee. In other words, what I'm saying is how we're reacting to our life. Something was given to me back in 1985, 8 words. If you think about them, the whole truth is in them. All action is God. All reaction is man. You see, life's events don't have an energy of their own. They simply just come as a part of our life. What gives them energy is our reaction to that event. We can react badly, or we can simply accept it, that this is a part of my life. The illness that I've just had, someone would say that was very bad. It wasn't bad. It was difficult. It wasn't bad or good. It was simply something that had to take place in my life, and I had to go through with it. So the easiest thing is, when a life's event comes, accept it and say, this is something I have to work through, and it might be difficult, but it is my life. That's the simple part of, if we can only just do that. Why is it that we get upset with things? Why do we find, even in our own organization, there are arguments, and there are differences, and there are frictions, and everything else? I often say that our organization is there for our benefit, to bring these opportunities to us, to lead us back to God. If only we could be like the mango tree. The mango tree doesn't say, here's Fred coming up the road, he's a nice chap, he can have a mango. Here's Henry coming, he's not so good, he doesn't get one. See, the mango tree is there for everybody. We need to be the same way. We need to be available to anybody to help, to be of service, to be a friend. But what happens to us? Oh, why do we get caught up in things? Because we think that we actually make things happen in our lives. That we go out and be successful, we can achieve this, we can achieve that. But this is not so. But the point is, because we believe it to be so, we also believe that others can make things happen, and the devils are making most of it happen to us. And we want to object to that, or get even, or be angry, or tell them off, or have arguments with them, or whatever is the case. And it's so simple. If only we could understand and grasp the fact that we can make nothing happen except our own misery because of our reactions to what is happening. You see, let's have a look. A couple of statements. An old saint that used to be in Bombay, Nisargadatta Maharaj, I was blessed to sit with in 1979. And the man was telling him of all his achievements. Oh, yes, Swami, I've done this and I've achieved that, and and I've been successful in this and everything. And eventually the old saint said to him, "Oh, you've achieved all that." And the man's attitude was as if to say, "Oh yes, Swami, here's a couple more I forgot about." Yeah. And so the old saint sat there for a little while, and he said, "Tell me, what part did you play in your own conception?" The man was a little stunned and looked at him and said, "I didn't play any part in that, Swami." "Oh. Then what part did you play in looking after that little form between conception and birth?" "I didn't have anything to do with that either, Swami." "Ah. Then what part did you play in choosing the environment into which you were born?" "No part, Swami." "What part did you play in choosing your own parents?" "No part, Swami." "Can you guarantee that 10 minutes from now you'll still be alive?" "No, Swami." The old saint smiled and said, "And still you think that you can make things happen?" Nisargadatta used to say, at the very moment of conception, a photograph is taken, setting out the life, its events, and its duration. You see, these things are set out for us, and they're going to happen. We're only instruments of the divine, and other instruments are used to bring events to us, and then we wish to attack the instruments that have played such a noble role. And then we react to everything, and away we go. See, I was talking at a girls' school one time, and I said to one young lady, "What's your name?" She said, "Christine." And I said, "All right, Christine, now," I said to the others, "if I come along and I give Christine a good kick in the leg, and it hurts her badly, Christine gets upset about it. Now, it's bad enough that she gets angry, but she wants to blame me for her anger." See, and they all came in at once, you know, "Oh, but you kicked her." I said, "Yes, and I'm responsible for her pain, but not her anger." She could say, "My goodness, Arthur, that did hurt." Or she can get angry and abuse me, and then I get caught up in it, and so it goes on. You see, the point is we choose our own reaction. We don't sit and think about it and choose it. It chooses automatically because of how we are. Of how we are in this lifetime. Does that make sense to you? Yeah. Think about it tomorrow if you get angry. These are the things that we need to think about in life, of how we can be a better devotee of Sai, of how we can turn more and more to God, of how we can lead a godly life. See, there are things in life that will teach us. We hear so many bad things about videos at times, don't we? But I'll tell you one very good thing, because it's a great teacher. It's a good teacher because if you're sitting there watching a video being played on the screen, what's happening? We're glued to the screen, aren't we? Everything that's happening, we're watching it very closely. Totally. We're not sitting there worried about that part of the tape that's been played, that's already gone by, which we might call the past. And we're not sitting there worrying about the next piece of tape that's to come, which we might call the future. We're focused on what's happening on the screen right now. If we do the same thing with life, it makes it simple. We don't have to get caught up with it. We don't have to get so caught up with the world. We can hold the spirit. Think about what we really are. Not this psychosomatic apparatus, Or should I go further and call it something sweeter? It's only a food bag, that's all it is. It's all it is. It's a food bag that can be the temple of God, which is the temple of God, which we need through which to express that which we are. If we look at the various lights in this building, various bulbs, various globes, but only one current lighting them all. For us, the current is divinity. But like the globes here, it depends upon the quality of the globe as to what light can be expressed through them. We had trouble in our hotel. We couldn't see to read at night. And we found that there were 25-watt lamps. No chance. So I went downstairs and said, have you got some stronger globes? And he gave me two 100 ones, you see. Made a very big difference. You see, the current can be expressed through the globe. It depends on what the globe is. That's where we have to be. Swami asks us, or tells us, that wherever we go, people should see Sai within us. How can we if we're only a 25-watt lamp or globe? And of course, rather relating to something that doesn't really happen anyway, which is death. If the globe blows, where has the current gone? It hasn't gone anywhere. The current is still there. It's only the globe that's blown. And what happens, you put a new one in and you've got reincarnation, in simple terms. So really, the more you see it, and the more you grasp it, the more simple everything becomes. We don't have to get caught up in the world. And the less we get caught up, the more we will experience and draw Swami's love. If the tap is closed, how can that current flow to us? How can that love flow to us? What we have to do, you know, as we're growing spiritually, we learn that, and we're told that we should be loving and kind to others. And so, okay, after a while we'll try that. Usually happens to the ones that we feel okay about, and not with the ones we don't feel okay about, you see. It's conditional, in other words. It's worldly love. Yes, I love you if you do the things I want you to do, or if you please me. But if you don't, then I'll take that love away. That's generally the way that it is in the world. Some people say, how is it that, what is this thing called love in the world? One moment you have it, and the next minute it's gone. Where does it go? It really doesn't go anywhere, because it simply means that if a person is starting to grow, one grows beyond the frequency of the other. That thing that was called love then, it's not there anymore. Or if one becomes perhaps an alcoholic and their vibration drops, again, love goes out the window. See? It's only just that people are feeling compatible with each other that exists. Really, in one sense, it's not worth worrying about, is it? We need to go beyond that. We need to try and get a glimpse of our own true nature, which is that love, and not the love I've just been talking about. If you get one glimpse of what you really are, of that love, that Swami is, that Jesus was and is even today, one glimpse of that will allow you to separate behavior from the person. And even though in playing out one's role, one has to deal with the behavior of a person, the love is never withdrawn. It's always there. If I can put it in another way, the love that you are then, you are the love. There's no effort. if we're making an effort to be loving and kind, it's not the love that Swami is. So what it is, love is not like a piece of cake. You can't cut slices off and give to people. When you get a glimpse of your own true nature and the love that you really are, then you don't feel excited and happy if someone experiences the love that you are. You don't feel upset and worried if someone doesn't feel it, because you're only the love, that's all. There are no expectations. You're not trying to be loving to somebody. You're not trying not to be loving to somebody. You're simply just the love that you are. And that's the beauty of it. We're not responsible for whether others are open to that love that you are. You see? So there's no expectation. Just be the love, that's all. And so it goes on. And more you come to see that the world, the universe, is the greatest hoax of all, where we think that we can achieve things, when we think that other people are doing things to us, when we think, my goodness, I've been unlucky and it's someone else's fault, this difficulty has come into my life. We keep asking for God's grace. Usually when we ask that, we're thinking of goodies. You know, I'd like this and I'd like that, and oh, please give me this. But in truth, God's grace is at its best when you're suffering. If we're having a good time and enjoying ourselves, you know, do we change a great deal? No, it's a ball. We just float along with it. But it's when we suffer, when we go through hardship, when we go through grief, when we go through loss, when we go through suffering, that's what makes us ask why. What's this all about? And you start looking for answers. And I remember many years ago, I used to sit there and say, oh my God, Lord, why me? Why me again? And it was as if someone was there saying, well, why not? Here's just a bit more. You know? And so it goes on, because while ever you're saying, why me, we're not getting the message. Eventually, instead of saying, why me, you say, why? Why is it so? What's the purpose of my existence? Why do I suffer the way I have been? Why do some seem to suffer more than others? Why does all this go on? Where's the fairness of it? It's only when you start to ask that way that God, as He conditions you, will bring you along and you'll get answers to that. Some seem a long time coming, but they do come. You can be assured of that. Let's take the word God away for a moment and talk about the totality. Within that totality of the universe or universes or whatever is there, within that there's the functioning of that totality. And when you think about it, all the functioning that has to go on within the totality, and yet each one of us, minute little things, have a function within that totality. And we have no choice about that. Our functioning must go on. Even when we sit and say, look, that man's lazy, he hasn't done any work for 10 years, he does nothing. It's all in his life. And in truth, he doesn't have a choice of that at all. If someone is extremely successful, they can't puff up with importance because it was no effort of theirs that brought it about. It is God's will only, in accordance with our pluses or minuses in our previous lives. So, where does that leave us? It leaves us with the fact that if we understand that these minute little things, which we call humans, have a role to play, a function within the totality of the universe, and quite often have egos greater than the universe itself. And we need to understand that the world, the universe, that we are not within that world and universe. In truth, the world and the universe is within us. That which I am. How can it be any other way? When Swami mentioned one time, he said, if you accept praise for something that is done, then you are the receiver of stolen property, because you are not the doer. Only the means of it being done, that's all. Swami also said to me on the veranda one day, what do you want? And I said, Swami, only to be a good instrument. And he smiled and said, yes. Then just do your duty, but leave everything else to God. You see, we have to make decisions in the roles that we play, the function that we have. We must make decisions, decide whether we're going to do that, or do something else. When we, I think I mentioned before, when something happens that works out all right, we puff up a little bit, you know, with our importance, because we made a very good decision there. And then we abuse ourselves if we don't make a good decision. When all that happens really is that our decision doesn't agree with God's outcome. That's one of the most important things we have to remember. All outcomes in our life will be God's. All we have to do is to play our role, that's all. It makes it easy. It makes it easy in decision making, because we know we've only just got to do our best and then be prepared to accept God's outcome, that's all. But we're usually worried, I don't know what to do about this. If I make a mistake, I'll look foolish, or I'll get the sack, or whatever it is, you know. But we just have to go ahead doing what we believe to be right. Swami has said, have the strength and the courage to do what you believe to be right, without intent to harm anybody or anything. See? Sometimes we might want to do something we believe to be right, but we have to think, well, in doing this, will it hurt somebody? If it does, then we may do that a little differently. Just to help, perhaps, in thinking about and understanding that we're not the doer, that we don't have a choice really. If we look at another totality, your own car, for instance, it's a totality of a car, and all the different parts have a function to play. And you walk out to your car one morning and the right-hand front wheel said, I don't work in with the rest of it, I please myself. I do what I want to do. Now, we'd laugh, wouldn't we? We'd really laugh at it. And yet that's what we've been doing life after life, believing that we can make it happen. And you start the car up and put it into gear, the wheel has to turn. It doesn't have a choice. We're no different to that. No different. Well, only difference is that when we see beyond this apparatus, this food bag, as I called it before, when we look beyond that, we see a love that we have never known. And the more that we focus on God, the more we leave everything to God and walk towards God, then you'll meet God. And you'll find it's your very self, not something that's different. See, even if we say, if we're making an effort, for instance, in the early stages we have to make effort for our spiritual growth. We have to do this, we have to do that, and what have you. But there comes a time when you see that even the effort itself is a stumbling block. Because while we're making that effort, it means we're trying to reach something, and there's nothing to reach. I am that. You see the simplicity of that. There's nothing to reach. I am that. The only thing that one has to realize is that one has already realized. That's all. That's all. And then, once you experience that love, the difficulty arises, in a sense, because you can't explain it to anybody else. It's a love beyond comprehension. There are no words. No words at all for that. Each one of us should be striving for that. Each one of us should see ourselves merely as an instrument of God and being the best instrument that we can be. And we have the opportunity in the world today, and we're here with God right now, with Sathya Sai. We just need to be not wanting everything from him all the time, just to be with him, just to know that he's brought us here. Not even asking for his grace. There was a man sitting with Ramana Maharshi pleading with him, Swami, please give me your grace. Please give me your grace, Swami. I need your grace. I'm leaving today. I need your grace. And the old saint looked at him and smiled. And he said, you remind me of the man standing in the river, up to his neck in water, crying out that he's thirsty. You see, the grace is the fact that we know about him, that we're here with him, and that we can sit and look upon his face, that we can know he can't be in another place, any place away from us, that he's always there. Don't limit him to this name and form. See him in every face, in every tree, in every animal, in every bird, because it's the one current lighting them all up. The only thing that we should pray for is to be a 5 million watt bulb, so that we express that light, so that God, who is trying to express itself through this form, can do so in all its brilliance. Don't be a 35 watt bulb or 25. That doesn't show any light at all. That's the simplicity of it, I think. Sai Ram. Sai Ram.